And for you to point out that there are weaknesses in the migration system, which we are trying to strengthen.
South Africa's fight against illegal immigration is heating up as top government officials face tough questions about the growing challenges across the country. From border control concerns to the pressure placed on communities and public services, the issue continues to trigger intense national debate. For years, South Africa has struggled with managing undocumented migration, with authorities repeatedly promising stronger enforcement while also balancing legal and humanitarian responsibilities. Now, senior leaders are stepping forward to explain what actions are being taken. Welcome back to Mzansi News Daily News, and as always, kindly smash the subscribe button, like and share this video, and I will give analysis at the end. Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni and Police Minister Firoz Cachalia are answering questions about illegal immigration and the government's response to the situation across the country. The officials are expected to address key concerns surrounding border security, law enforcement operations, undocumented migrants, and the steps being taken to strengthen immigration control. The discussions come at a time when immigration remains one of South Africa's most debated issues, with citizens demanding answers on how government plans to protect borders and enforce existing laws. Authorities have highlighted the need for cooperation between different government departments, including immigration officials, law enforcement agencies, and border management structures, to tackle the challenge effectively. The issue has sparked strong reactions nationwide, with some calling for stricter action against illegal migration, while others emphasize the importance of following due process and protecting human rights. As the government provides updates, many South Africans are watching closely for clear answers and practical solutions. Analysis intro. At the end of this video, we will break down what these statements mean, why illegal immigration remains such a major issue in South Africa, and whether the government's current approach can deliver real results.
And for you to point out that there are weaknesses in the migration system, which we are trying to strengthen, only strengthens the case for the government's comprehensive response. We should not be represented as some kind of tyranny, a dictatorial government that is responding in an uncaring way. In fact, that comprehensive plan demonstrates that we are saying to our people, in the midst of this crisis, we understand your anger, but we want you to adhere to the basic morality embodied in our Constitution, to the rule of law. That has been the message of this government. I cannot accept the implication, the implied criticism in your question. Now, to the Nigerian journalist, thank you for your questions. And I can also hear your anger. You referred to 4 cases. I encourage you to give me that information and I will follow it up. But the purpose of your question was to suggest that Nigerians are a special category of people who are being victimized in South Africa by virtue of their nationality. Failing to distinguish between issues of illegal immigration and issues of criminality. Am I correct? These are cases that you mentioned in which you are saying Nigerians were the victims of crime. Well, you'll have your opportunity again. That I understood your question. I don't think I was mistaken. Your question was, there are 4 cases in which Nigerians, you have that information, you're saying we haven't acted, and these are 4 cases in which Nigerians, because they are Nigerians, have been the victims of criminality. Now, if that is the case, I'm saying you're conflating issues of illegal immigration with issues of criminality, and that you shouldn't be making that reductive argument. Okay. But I can indicate to you that we have a problem like your country. We have a problem of criminality. We don't look at the nationality of the victim. So I think that insinuation was improper. Now, you're also critical of one of the ministers, the minister in the presidency on this platform, because you say quite rightly that this is a sensitive moment and that we should all be acting in a responsible way to reduce the tensions. That is a two-way street. There is a lot of misinformation and inflammatory rhetoric being directed at this government. We need to have a respectful conversation with our partners, with our sister countries on the African continent, about the terms of migration into what is a sovereign territory of South Africa. We have to be able to have that conversation. South Africa was the last country on our continent to achieve its independence as a sovereign territory of the South African people that has a commitment to Pan-African unity. The decolonization project on our continent produced independent nation states, starting with Ghana in 1957. What does it mean to have a continent made up of sovereign states that also form part of the Organization of African Unity? We need to be able to have that conversation in order to ensure that our continent is united, that it prospers, that our countries are well governed, and that they are all committed to the well-being of their own peoples. That is what we, the last country on the African continent to be liberated, to achieve its independence, that's the conversation we are asking to have with you. So if you say you want to have a respectful conversation, you want to reduce the tensions, I agree with you. But that's a two-way street. We have seen a lot of inflammatory rhetoric on social media, and I would not exclude the political leadership of some countries. And I understand their concerns as well. So please convey the message to your citizens and to your leaders as well, that that is the sentiment that you experienced in South Africa. We, in this country, we supported all the teams, African teams in the World Cup. We're not confused about our identity and where we stand on important matters concerning our mutual interest. Thank
you. Let me invite the minister in the presidency, Minister Ntshavheni.
Thank you, Brother Willie. There were two questions that were raised of what are we doing to engage with the missions or home countries to alleviate the problem of illegal immigration. For us as government, this is beyond the process of the repatriation and also the deportations and the continuous challenge that we're dealing with. When we were doing the post-cabinet briefing, we indicated that cabinet for almost over a year, when we were discussing before 2024 elections, when we were discussing the draft white paper on immigration, refugee protection and asylum seekers. And also when we were dealing with the revised white paper on immigration, refugee protection and asylum seekers. And also when we're dealing with the National Intelligence Estimate, and you'll recall that in the previous briefing, we also indicated the issue of illegal immigration has been raised very high in the National Intelligence Estimate. And our approach was, as Minister Kubai has indicated, that majority of the countries that we are finding their nationals or citizens in the country illegally do not even qualify to apply for either refugee or asylum status in this country. We indicated that we discussed the pull and the push factors for the illegal immigration into South Africa. It's part of the issues that Minister Cachalia has just referred to now, of the instability that makes the government not being able to protect their own nationals. That's why part of the challenge that we have had is people who do not even have a passport to start with, not that they've expired, and that because even the cost of the documentation, the cost is not on the South African side, the cost of the documentation, it's in their own countries applying for that documentation. We then also concluded that what is important, and it's our commitment, both as the current chairperson of SADC, as an active member of the AU, as the current chairperson of SACU, that we are committed to the Agenda 2063 of the AU of silencing the guns for the development, for the economic development of Africa. And our priority is saying Africa, a better Africa and a better world. And that means all of us as governments, we must commit to ensure conditions that allow economic development. In that briefing, we indicated, I think it was the the IMC briefing, we indicated that as South Africa, we're actively involved in the development projects, industrialization projects in Angola, in the Lobito corridor. We are also actively involved in the projects in Mozambique, and our companies have invested, South African companies, Sasol has invested big time. The number of South African companies that have invested in the African continent as part of that commitment. We are the first signatory, we are part of the first signatories on the African Continental Free Trade Area, because we have a commitment to industrialize Africa, because if we industrialize and develop together, the pull factors to South Africa will not take place. And our commitment, that's why we even in the members of SACU, when there was a debate around SACU, we worked on the reimagined SACU. We recently had the SACU summit in Cape Town, I think 2 weeks ago. And part of that commitment is the industrialization of the SACU areas, which is the Southern African Customs Union, which is amongst the largest customs union. And also in SADC, which we are hosting the summit now in August, and we'll host another one next year in August in South Africa again as the longest serving chairperson of SADC. Our theme is focused on the industrialization of the Southern Africa. And we continue to mobilize our companies to invest within the region and within the continent, to make sure that the development and the industrialization of the region and the continent is at a fast pace. It's for that reason that we also we have committed to fight against diseases. We are the only country in the continent that has contributed money in millions of US dollars in the fight against the Ebola disease, pandemic that has come through. We remain the champion for a healthy Africa at the EAU, because we are committed to make sure that Africa develops and Africa is free of disease and Africa can focus on the industrialization, like Minister Cachalia has said. But all of us as governments within the AU, who are members of the AU, we need to commit to ensure conditions in our own countries that allow political stability, political certainty, and conducive conditions for economic development. Thank you.
South Africa's migration battle is intensifying as government officials reveal a major increase in the number of foreign nationals being processed for deportation and repatriation. In just a few weeks, the figure has climbed to more than 53,000 people, marking a significant development in the country's ongoing efforts to tighten immigration control. For years, South Africa has faced challenges linked to illegal migration, border security, and pressure on public services. The government has repeatedly promised stronger action to manage migration while ensuring that immigration laws are properly enforced. Welcome back to Mzansi News Daily News, and as always, kindly smash the subscribe button, like and share this video, and I will give analysis at the end. Justice and Constitutional Development Minister and Chairperson of the Interministerial Committee on Migration, Mamoloko Kubayi, has confirmed that more than 53,000 foreign nationals have been processed for deportation and repatriation to their countries of origin. Speaking during a media briefing in Pretoria, Kubayi delivered an update on the progress made by the IMC as it works to implement government's 5-point migration plan announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The plan focuses on strengthening South Africa's borders, improving the immigration system, and ensuring better coordination between different government departments involved in migration management. Authorities say the increased processing numbers show that government agencies are taking stronger steps to address undocumented migration. The operation involves identification, legal procedures, and working with relevant authorities to carry out repatriations. The announcement has already sparked debate across the country, with some South Africans welcoming tougher border enforcement, while others are calling for a balanced approach that also considers humanitarian concerns. Analysis intro. At the end of this video, we will break down what this massive increase means for South Africa, how the 5-point migration plan could change border control, and what challenges government may face moving forward.
On the 26th June 2026, we reported through a media briefing that 15,162 Malawian nationals have been repatriated. We have seen a tremendous increase on the number of foreign nationals that have either been deported or repatriated today. As of close of business of the 11th July 2026, a total of 53,449 foreign nationals have been processed for either deportation and repatriation, which is dominated by the following. Malawians are actually at the point of 80%, followed by the Zimbabweans and Mozambicans. Repatriations to countries beyond SADC amounts to 2,615 and include the returns to Kenya with a total of 431, Nigerians 1,159, Republic of Congo 86, Uganda 939. So those were done through air in terms of arranging for their air travel by their country of origin. In addition to the repatriation, the normal immigration deportation process continued. So this is work that happens month to month. For the month of June alone, 2026, this is where we're doing deportation, arresting them, finding them in communities, either through Operation Shanyela or through the enforcement by Department of Labor and Department of Home Affairs. Out of those, for the month of June 2026, we have a total of 4,898 that have been deported. Malawi nationals, 1,929. Zimbabweans, 1,384. Mozambique nationals, 1,200. Lesotho, 342. And lastly, for the period of 14 June 2026 to 8 July, a total of 2,801, which composes of 910 Malawi nationals, Zimbabweans 903, Mozambicans 755, Lesotho 187, which have been confirmed for deportation.
Well, Gupai has added that the extradition proceedings for United Kingdom fugitive Ndodana Mkhanyisi Chuma are expected to commence soon.
I firstly wish to commend our SAPS and Interpol for the sterling work that they have done this week in the arrest of Mr. Mkhanyisi Ndodana Chuma, a fugitive wanted for murder of his wife and 2 children in the UK. He arrived according to our movement control systems at OR Tambo International Airport on the 5th of July 2026 from Britain. Once we have received the alert from Interpol, we acted swiftly from a multidisciplinary team conducting tracing, and the suspect was arrested in Kensington, Johannesburg. At the time he went through OR Tambo, he had not yet been flagged by British authorities. So if he had been flagged, he would not have entered the country. He will be extradited to the UK once I have signed all the extradition documents and requests as required by the law in my capacity as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. We are informed that the teams are working quite hard around the clock so that the extradition requests are done and the paperwork is done in time.
That is the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, the chairperson of the Interministerial Committee on Migration, Mamoloko Gubai, speaking a bit earlier on. Let's pick up the story and give you some perspective with security strategist Andy Mashaile, who joins us now. Good evening to you, Ndate Mashaile, and thank you for your time this evening. So there's clearly momentum as far as deportations and repatriations are concerned. I mean, in the case of deportations, for example, we were talking 109,000 by end of March this year. With this 53,000 that's been added, deportations and repatriations, what does it signal as a policy decision and implementation decision by the South African state?
Good evening to you, Tulas, and the magnificent crew in the production room. What we need to learn from this exercise is that government and its people have closed a rank in terms of implementation of the laws of this country, particularly those that deal with immigration, particularly those that addresses crime and criminality being affected by South Africans or by illegal immigrants, for want of a better way. We are now seeing, Tulas, the South African government and the people of this country joining hands, even when there are some little challenges in terms of those in the marches committing crime and criminality and who end up behind bars. We are seeing what the 32 years of democracy have wanted us to convey to the people and to law enforcement authorities in South Africa and worldwide, that you cannot come into South Africa undocumented and stay there, or come into South Africa with a passport and overstay your visa. These are some of the things that reinforce confidence in governance and confidence in those who join hands with law enforcement authorities as well as government.
Is it your sense that this momentum that I'm talking about around deportations and voluntary repatriations is coupled with systemic interventions, the issues that have driven some of the practices to which you allude, corruption around the stamping of passports for stays longer than what is provided for in law? Underlying that has been systemic corruption, lack of capacity in the Border Management Authority, for example. Do you get a sense that the two are happening hand in hand, the repatriations and deportations, as well as addressing the systemic issues?
Definitely, Tulas. They are two sides of the same coin. This speaks to the integrity in the border management processes, as well as the willingness of government to invest in ensuring that those who want to go back to their countries voluntarily are being assisted to do so. We have seen big numbers of the Malawians, and we have also learned that the Nigerians also have been sent back, and quite some other nationalities from other African countries. And also speaking the issue to us of adding resources to close the 75% of our borders and ports of entry that have not been properly policed from a border management point of view. So we are seeing a systemic improvement and enhancement, and also in a systematic way of getting those who want to leave our country to come as desirables if they do come back after fixing papers. Remember, there are others who will be declared undesirables, like one Zambian who is in South Africa that we know of, Tulas, who has ripped some up-and-coming artists and have done allegedly some terrible things to a female artist who has joined his music label. those individuals would be undesirable. I'm thinking when a case of rape or sexual abuse or any of those is laid, you would have that individual who's running around in our country now as an undesirable, who would then be forced out and not go out with, willingly and voluntarily, as we are seeing in this process.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time and your insights this evening. That is security strategist Andy Mashaile reflecting on that briefing that happened earlier on by the Interministerial Committee on Migration.